Hello and welcome to Filibustering History, a podcast series where we discuss what historians do with their lives. As always, I'm Rob Denning, lead faculty for the history programs at Southern New Hampshire University's College of Online and Continuing Education. Now, I'm all alone here in my mountain retreat today, but I wanted to tell you what some of the historians in La Casa de Filibuster have been up to lately, in addition to the compelling interviews that we post here every fortnight, of course. I don't think we've mentioned before that we have a Twitter account, @filibusterhist. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to pronounce the @ sign. I probably am. But anyway, twitter.com/filibusterhist. Filibustering history is evidently too long for tweeting. It sounds like this is actually a podcast on the history of the filibuster, and some listeners are going to be in for a rude surprise, but, whatever. We will win them over. Anyway, on that feed, we post announcements for new episodes, and we provide links to most of the recordings mentioned in every episode. Well, those things that have links anyway. We even try to use hashtags correctly, though I offer no guarantees about that. We also post articles and announcement of interest to historians on the job market, or who will soon be on the job market. Sometimes I post something that is only interesting to me, but, what are you going to do about it? This is my podcast, not yours. Sometimes we also post announcements for things that are only tangentially related to the job market, but may be of interest to our listeners. One of those items is a symposium that SNHU is hosting in conjunction with the International Committee for Museology, or ICOFOM, later this year. A while back, the International Council of Museums, or ICOM, yes, there is ICOM and ICOFOM, these are two separate entities, so, try to keep it straight, there will be a quiz at the end of this episode. Anyway, ICOM announced that it wants to develop a new definition of the museum, one that takes into account changing technologies, changing methodologies, and changing tastes in the 21st century. Now, museums in the 18th, 19th, or even 20th centuries were very different from the museums of today, and today's museums will be very different from the museums of the future. ICOM wants to figure out where museums are going, and they have asked the international community of museum specialists, also known as museologists, to help them formulate a new global definition of museum. The international community has responded to this call with a series of symposia dedicated to formulating local definitions of museum that can also be used to inform that larger project. Museologists affiliated with ICOFOM and ICOM have held meetings in Paris, China, Argentina, Brazil, and Scotland to define the museum within their own demographic, political, academic, and social contexts. In September of 2018, SNHU and ICOFOM will hold the first such symposium in the United States. This will be an online meeting and will include panel presentations and discussions attempting to answer some fundamental questions regarding museums in the United States. What role does the nation play in establishing priorities for museums in the U.S., which is a country, of course, built on immigration from around the world? What types of artifacts and nature facts should we expect to see in museums of the future? Will physical museums even exist? How should museums respond to changing demographic, political, and social trends in the United States? The answers to questions like these will inform our local definitions of museum, and will, in turn, inform ICOM's new global definition. It's going to be awesome. Many thanks to Yunshun Suzy Chung, who you heard in a previous episode of this podcast, for getting the whole thing started and doing the initial planning for the symposium, and to my old high school football coach, James Fennessy, for shepherding it through the university bureaucracy. Now, the symposium will be completely online, so anybody can listen in and participate. We've already issued the call for papers and presentations, a link to which you'll find in the notes to this very episode. We want to hear your answers to these questions, so please join us. You can also find this information on our Twitter feed. Have you heard that we have a Twitter feed? No? Well, I suggest you go back to the beginning of this episode, probably somewhere around the 10-second mark. And then when you come back to this spot, you can listen again. It's like one of those old Commodore 64 programs, Line 10, print hello. Line 20, go to 10. And then you type run and walk away as the computer spun itself into oblivion. Okay, I strayed way off topic there. Anyway, the ICOFOM Symposium isn't taking up all of our time. We've been busy at our secret base on the dark side of the moon. We have a bunch of new podcast episodes coming, including interviews with some of the folks who will speak at that symposium. We've also begun to breathe new life into our sister podcast, History Soundbites, where SNHU instructors present their own research to the university community and to anybody that's interested in the broader public. As we post those, we will continue to record interviews with the presenters so that everybody gets to know the historian behind the research. We have a half dozen or so presentations in various stages of development there, so stay tuned. We've also started posting these podcasts to YouTube, if you're into watching videos that have no actual moving pictures. All right, well, that's all for now. James Fennessy, who was not actually my old football coach. I don't know why I would say such a thing. Anyway, James and I will be back with another interview next week. Take care.